thought you guys call it the digs.
You want to know when you felt like you finally made it? You got invited to Cobi's Club.
That's the truth. That's the truth. that is the truth. All right. So first off, well, thanks for joining, on Cobi Club.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate that. And I gotta preface this. I'm giving you 50% because I broke my iPad. So, so I'm like on my phone now with my notes and stuff. Just like, wait, what's that say?
You got the dad size font,
yeah,
size 18.
And of course, I have my glasses in here, so you'll see this, quite a bit.
So we know 94 was a long time ago.
Oh, damn straight. Speaking of, long time ago, and I know you've done a lot of podcasts and stuff, and so I'm sure you always get talked or asked about the Yankees, right?
Yeah.
I'm going before that, man.
Okay.
I'm going before that. I want to hear about, like, you and the Bruce have a lot in common because you guys grew up in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah, born in the mid 80s, so 80s, 90s, childhood growing up in Brooklyn.
Okay, explain that to a West Coast guy, because I could never understand Bruce's perspective.
So everything more than two stories, right? And everything right next to each other, right? So basically the opposite. Lots of walking, not a lot of driving, a lot of looking up, not out. But it's great because there's so many people from different parts of the world that come together in a really confined space, and so when it comes to something like soccer, it's it's such a common language anyway that it's really easy to find different pockets of people.
Yeah, so I mean, but Brooklyn, someone from growing up in the LA area, just always thinking about, you always hear these stories about Brooklyn. Like, what was like your I know your sport was basketball, but what was your music? What was that? Were you listening to Little PE?
If you're growing up in Brooklyn in the 90s, right?
Right.
Of course, it's got to be like East Coast, Biggie.
Okay.
Mobb Deep, Nas.
See, that's what I'm talking about, dude. See, exactly. I can appreciate that. I love that.
Maybe you didn't have the appreciation for the West Coast artists because of all the extra drama, right? So it was a little tribal at the time, but.
Just a tad.
But Biggie, Nas, Mobb Deep, Tribe Called Quest, Gangstar, all that stuff, right? And that was growing up at that time, like, that was everything.
So let me ask you this. This is a little side note, though. You're laughing. When you're cruising in your car now, are you still blasting that going?
No, I think it's just that I think my daughter's locked my phone, so it's K-pop Demon Hunters on repeat. I haven't figured out how to unlock the Spotify yet, so it's
That's
now
hilarious.
it's like when I get in and it's like whatever Disney song was loaded up the last time we were all in the car. But I try to stay current on what's going on too, right? Because I don't want to be in a locker room or at training and you hear some music and the guys are playing, you're like, oh, what's this, right? So
you're saying you don't want to be like me?
No,
what are these young kids playing today?
Young whippersnappers have no taste. But no, it's important to just kind of stay. Music is like something that connects people, also just like sports, and so I think it's really important to know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at obviously your bio and stuff, and going back into your history, and I get the basketball thing.
Yeah.
This is crazy because now I have two sons that play basketball. My God, people, if you don't know what it's like. You go to a basketball games and what parents are like, during these games. Right. It's insane, man. It's loud as can be because everything, the whistles and everything, and you go to these warehouses that are just full of courts,
right.
And everyone's going crazy.
Yeah,
I've seen some of the craziest things in sports at these basketball gyms. Yeah. It's insane.
Or you see the crazy thing, like 2 courts over,
yeah,
and in between, nobody knows what's going on. Yeah. Right? Like it's.
I mean, so you grew up through going to all of that?
So again, the great thing about New York, we got great public transit, so it's really easy to get to a lot of different places. So you can play for different teams, and you might be playing with a team that plays in like the South Bronx. You're playing with a team from Canarsie, deep out in Brooklyn, or a team in Midtown. So it's also a really good way to find different pockets of competition.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, I think all amateur sports now are a little crazier than they used to be.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's always been, and you go to like, Chelsea Piers on the West Side, or it's just basketball city.
See, I know that one. I know Chelsea Piers,
exactly,
I know that. You're like, of course you do, right?
Well, if you didn't, it'd be trouble, right? But,
right.
No, it's, that's the great thing about basketball too, is it just, if you ever seen the visual where they put an NBA court on a soccer field and it fits within the 18. right? So you could fit a full-size NBA court within the 18-yard box on the football pitch. And so just
That's
from
insane.
a real estate perspective, you can get a lot more basketball in than football.
Yeah, that makes me wonder, like a lot of the things that we see now where everyone's, because of real estate and soccer fields are just so big, can you get these small-sided, courts or for soccer or these little facilities and trying to do, soccer and basketball at the same time? I'm just wondering if is that feasible? Is that something that you back, coming around?
Definitely. I mean, look, I'm a big believer in like playing away, like sort of the unstructured playing, right? There's the competitive playing. And I think when you have a local park, and it doesn't need to be a full field, right? Like look, growing up in Brooklyn, like the odds that you had 22 guys and girls at the same place, same time was impossible. But you might show up and, one day it's 4-on-4, and the next day it's 5-on-4, and the next day it's 3-on-3, and one day you're playing on concrete, so the ball's moving and skipping hard. The next day you're playing on some turf somewhere or grass. And so I think having different combinations of numbers in a kind of less structured environment is really good. And playing pickup is huge. Like I think so many players in whatever sport, right? They didn't just do what coach told them to do, right? They did a lot after. They'd play before school or after school, whatever it might be. And so, I don't think you have to look at it and say we need to have a full field to get something out of it. Like, can we compete? And depending on the numbers and the size of the space and the surface, you're working on different skills, different spatial relationships, different ways of moving the ball and competing. So
you're learning. You're learning the game in a different way.
Exactly.
So you're learning everything that the game can offer.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But you're stepping into dangerous territory because it's like, okay, the youth soccer and that this is probably one of the biggest issues within the game right now.
Yeah.
Is it pay to play? Should you just have coach all the way up until you're 18, and professional, which is best? Obviously, I can see your perspective, probably the same as mine. I think you have to step away. But how do you deal with, the situations of, well, I've got to get my kid, when you're talking about parents, I got to get my kid on this team because this club's scouts might see him during this one weekend tournament, that it's insane to me.
Yeah, look, I think there's, I think we're pretty aware of the pressure that's on these kids, right? Look at the kids in our academy, and just by virtue of being in the Galaxy Academy, there is a bigger spotlight on you. I don't think we appreciate how much pressure the parents feel under, right? And I think it comes from a really honest, genuine place. You're a parent, you want the best for your child. I don't think every parent knows how to achieve that, though, or what the best looks like. And so a lot of times people are looking for things that might be proxies for quality, right? So this is a good program, therefore I'm going to send my son there. Now, do they play the style that suits your son or your daughter's abilities, right? Do they have the right opportunities for your child? Is it close enough that it makes sense, right? We have parents, I think, who will drive 2 hours a day each way. And look, in Brooklyn, you could do that because you could take the subway. I didn't need my parents to take me to practice if I had to go far out. But here, as a minor, especially if you can't drive, like, you're really limited. And so I think parents feel a lot of pressure to find the ideal situation. But, in this day and age, because everybody's got cell phones and huddles and cameras and the big ticket events are happening so frequently, it's really hard to go under the radar. And so I think parents feel some pressure to get their kids seen. But I also think that, if they're that good, like, the game will come to them, the game will find them. And because we have so many different outlets, my advice would just sort of say, hey, be proud of your son or your daughter, but, you should have the expectation that if they're really good, somebody's going to come tell you that they're really good. You're going to hear from somebody else that they're good or this is the right program for them. And, the most important thing is just play as much as you can. Don't worry about the sort of the long-term plan, because the reality is 99% of all youth players don't make it to the next level, right? And those that make it to the next level, 99% of them don't make it to the elite level. And so it's incredibly hard, and you want to try and enjoy it. But I think there's a long-winded way of saying there's a lot of pressure on parents.
I mean, well, I'll tell you this: if I told my parents you have to drive 2 hours to get me to training, nope, no chance whatsoever. It wouldn't have been happening. I do wonder, though, a little bit of the pushback, like the game will come to them and all that, but there's timing too, right? Because kids develop. And I always put myself out there because I was never considered a top player until I got to college. So like my development, I can remember, because I ran track as well, I can specifically remember a track meet where I could tell all of a sudden I got faster, like all my body changed, and all of a sudden I was beating guys before. One track meet, and that was towards the end of my senior year. So that's a delicate balance of also figuring out the right time for your kid.
No doubt, and that's when I say the game kind of finds you, because the game, I think, comes to everybody at different times, right? And there's no one prescribed path. I think everybody wants it to be uniform. When you're in school, all right, I'm in first grade, then I go to second grade, then third grade. But once you're talking about football, it kind of happens at different times for different people. Some guys develop more quickly, and they're ready sooner. Some people need that extra development time. I was somebody who took time to grow into their body from a basketball standpoint, so I kind of had the height, but not the coordination. And that's where I think what you really need to be thinking about is, all right, what is a guy or girl's progression physically in terms of their game, and again, what's the best environment for them, right? I think college is good for you because you went and you played a lot, and you played at one of the highest levels you could, and those reps got you ready. And so it's just about not feeling like it has to be at a certain way at a certain time. Right? Yeah. And I say that as a basketball player who worked in baseball and then went to law school and became a GM and in our football, right? So everything is a different path, and you shouldn't be so worried about doing it one way.
Okay, I love that you just said that. Different path. We're going to get into it now because I know you've answered this 1,000 times. We'll make it 1,001. Yeah. How do you go from, I'm going to start off your early years, going from a Mets fan to like, I'm going Yankees, Okay, and I get a little bit of it that you Williams College, right? And so there. Okay, I'm going to not even keep going, but how do you go from such a Mets fan and you go to Williams College and obviously there's a connection to the Yankees, from there? What did it hurt a little bit? Saying I was going to go there, or is it just the opportunity?
No, I think it's the opportunity.
Yeah, okay.
You're 19. You're like, look, I'll do anything.
Yeah,
right. I go to, and I don't want to disparage it. I'd go to a lot of different markets to have a chance to work for a team. You do learn pretty quickly though. Like, and you've lived this too. Mm-hmm. Once you're on this side of it, the fandom dies. It's a job, man. It's business.
It's a grind. Yeah. It's a grind.
And you realize that people necessarily understand from the outside what it's like.
Yeah.
So you get into the off season and people ask you, so you don't have to go to work anymore, right? You're just done? Or, so you guys are in preseason, so you're not really doing anything. It's a really tough business and unique business in that way. But you also, I'm a competitive guy. It's a chance to go work at the highest, at the best, right? You want to work for the winningest club, the most storied club, and I don't care, what your personal affiliations or preferences are. I think there's always something to be said for trying to go at the be part of the biggest organization you can.
Yeah, no, that I would agree with that, 100%. So you from college to the Yankees, even though you were a Mets fan, and then I always think it's interesting because you did, like you said, there is no path, right? No one path to where you want to be. And you jump from the Yankees going to MLS, working in the offices there. And I'm going to stop there because I know some stories of what goes on at MLS offices. I can't imagine the things that you have seen and you had to deal with, because correct me if I'm wrong here, but at MLS, amongst many things, one of the things you were dealing with was the acquisition of players from teams, and they would come to you to make sure that they were compliant, basically, so to speak. So you
got Bruce Arena calling you an asshole and an idiot every 5 days in the offseason.
Oh, I love it.
In a slow period, 5 days in a slow period.
Right. So what was that like, where you're just getting the nonstop? And like you said, I'm sure that offseason of MLS was probably your high time, where everyone's like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, it was. It's funny. I was talking to yesterday was our roster compliance in MLS, and I was talking to some of the people in the league office, and I remember what a crazy crunch it is, because it's not. When you're at a club, you're dealing with us, right? So what do we, the Galaxy, need to do today to get better? I don't really care what New York City's doing or what Houston's doing. Like, we're focused on us, and there's a lot of levels to that, right? You've got our youngers playing in the academy this weekend, all the way through our first team, but you're focused on us and what you have to deal with the league with. when you go to the league, you're dealing with everybody's problems at all different levels. And that was one of the things I think that was really appealing to me coming from baseball, because I had to learn how baseball sort of worked as not just a game, but then an industry. And you spend all this time, a decade in it, right? And you're grinding and working towards something at the team side, which was great. But then going to a different sport, I was like, if I attach myself to a team and it doesn't go well,
right?
You could be out real quick, and now you've left baseball. It didn't go well. But if you go work for the league office, you get more exposure, right? You have a little more time to see how everything works. You deal with a president on one issue, a coach on another issue, a GM on another issue, and so I thought it was a really good way for me to get some exposure and kind of get my feet set. I always knew I wanted to get back to a club and do what I do now, and I think once I got to league office, that was even more the case, because life was way too comfortable. There's like a level of anxiety and pressure, I think, that just comes with working in a club that you don't get at the league office. And some people really like that. I think you're either a league person or a club person. But I'm definitely a club guy. And, it was pretty shortly after I got to league office, I said, okay, this is the right place for me to learn what I need to get back to a club and do what I want to do in our football.
Okay, so there's so much I want to ask there, but from that perspective, maybe you could answer it from the club side, because obviously you were at LAFC and you're at the Galaxy now, but also from the league side. How do you compare like the player acquisitions, the player deals with like when you're dealing with the Yankees, like that? What's it? Is there a difference there? Like dealing with the players?
There's definitely a difference. And I think, part of it comes with, if you're with the Yankees, right? Let's say we need a shortstop. Yeah. Okay. Who are the 10 best shortstops in the world? Put them on the board. Okay. Let's find out everything we can about them, right? Not just how they perform on the field. What type of people are they, right? Do they play fantasy football? What kind of movies do they like? What kind of music do they like?
So you go that in depth, like their personal.
Like you're putting together, and you try and put together, a hype reel playlist set to their favorite music, right? Or try to create experiences that are unique to them and what they like. In our football now, you're like, all right, we need a left winger. Who are the 20 best left wingers in the world? Well, throw them all out, because we can't, we can't afford any of them. Just take them all off the list. Okay, that's great. It's another opportunity, right?
Right.
It provides a different, it asks different questions, but the thing that I think is common is that you spent a lot of time at the Yankees, like you already bet everything, right? So even if it's your second situational reliever, the last guy in your bullpen, if one guy might be a fraction better, then you have that conversation. I think we do that now when we're talking about our roster. Now, our rules are very different. Like I said, the types of players you're going after maybe different in the overall pyramid, but you still want to make the best decision possible and make sure that we talk about all the different permutations of our candidates and how they fit with our group. When you're at the league office, you're watching teams crash their cars, right? And you're like, there were a couple times where I just remember, like, you see a team and they're leaking goals, and they're like, we've got $500,000, we're gonna sign this forward, and you're like, yeah, okay, like it's my job to help you
get what you want, not give the advice.
And they don't want your advice, right? They're like, this is what we want to do, and that I think for me was really difficult, because in the league you're in a service position, you're helping these teams make the decisions they want to make. Right. Even if you feel like, and at that first year, you're like, I don't know, just got here. And by year 2, year 3, you're like, hey, like this is a bad idea, but you can't say anything. And but you always want to help the teams do the best job they can.
That's interesting. You want to name names on crashing cars? Yeah. Who's driving straight into... There's a wall right there, I'm telling you.
If you go back and look, the standings kind of tell a pretty accurate story from that period, right? So I think you go back and kind of look at the table to get a sense.
Okay, so everyone out there, go look at when he was in...
But you also realize that every team sees something different, right? Like we can all... And that's something we learned in I learned when I was scouting in baseball. It's like we could watch the same game, right? Yeah. The same players say the same game, and we're going to come up with 2 different ways to talk about it. And we might have very different takeaways about what that player is or how they performed. And so you always got to be mindful that everybody sees something a little bit different. So what might seem really obvious to us on the outside, maybe we don't know the dynamics of the locker room, or maybe you don't understand what the next move might be. They're bringing this person in because they're then going to move so-and-so. Sometimes they're just crashing the car, right? But you do always want to be mindful that there's always an information deficit, and that those closest to it have more. Sometimes they're using it well, sometimes they're not, but it's a good, everybody does things differently and sees things differently.
Yeah, I mean that's life, right? Different perspectives, but how do you, as a GM now, and you have to have those relationships with coaches, with players. And I understand it, like you said, when you're on the other side, it's different than when you're on the player side, and it's different to what the fans see. How do you manage the relationships when you know that you got to move somebody on, but because they're still here, but you got to move them on, and you're planning for the future? That's an interesting dynamic of just trying to keep everything. I wouldn't even say happy, but keeping everything copacetic within the team.
No, it's hard, right? That's the part of the job I think people don't necessarily look at and realize. I think everybody says, "Yeah, GM, that's awesome, right? You're signing players and you're competing in games," but the relationship piece of it is really difficult. I'll use a real live example today, right? Because by the time this goes up, we'll know. But we had to waive Christian Ramirez to be roster compliant. Yesterday was the roster compliance deadline, and so we told Christian, last night. I had to call him once we got back from Panama. He came in today, and we talked to the team about it. But we've been trying like crazy to create the cap space we need to keep this group together as much as we could. And you get to a point in your off season where it's MLS, it's a math problem, right? You know what the budget is, and you know how many resources you have, and you're trying to do whatever you can to keep the group together, and then you get to a point where you're like, we're 60% sure that we're going to have to do this, but I don't know that you say anything at 60%. Right now you're 80% sure, and like, what's the right time? And it's really difficult, and I think what I always try to do is two things, right? Is I always want to be present as much as possible. I don't want to be somebody who just flies in on the day of a game or isn't around the group. I think it's important to be in the meal room, to be on the flights and on the buses, because you got to go through it with the guys, because you're going to have hard conversations at some point, whether it's the start of the year, end of the year, transfer windows. And I think the other thing that's really important is to be straight up with guys. I think it's very easy to try and tell people what they want to hear or avoid a difficult conversation. But the reality is, if you're talking about somebody being traded or waived or cut or whatever it might be, that's never what you want to hear. There's no good way to have the conversation.
Correct.
And if you have competitive men and women whose livelihood is this, I don't expect them to feel really good about it in the moment, right? That's okay to be upset, to be angry with me or somebody else. But you hope that by being straight up with them and having the difficult conversation up front, that whenever it is that the temperature comes down, whether it's the next day, next week, next month, that they can appreciate, hey, Will, kept it straight up with us. He was honest. He told us, he told me when it was time and didn't beat around the bush. I think that's really important. And then, when you do that as much as possible, hopefully it makes it easier to then have people be like comfortable around you and not feel like you're sort of plotting, if that makes sense.
No, it completely makes sense. I've had, from my perspective, I've been on the side of coaches and stuff not being straight up, and that bothers you more because I don't think the coaches realize, yes, they're trying to do their thing and trying to tell you what you want to hear, but you got to make life plans, and if they hold on and wait too long, you've screwed up anything else that they've wanted to do. So being straight up and as forthright, as soon as possible, I think is always the best. And I always say, I think, maybe it's a Brooklyn thing, because I tell you, that's one thing. And I think that's one of the reasons, right? Like so many players like Bruce Arena is that, he could be gruff, he could be very forthright, but he always told you exactly what he was thinking. And you could not like it, but you could move on, and I think that's why he still has respect of so many players,
Look, this, I say about sports all the time, the great thing is like we get to find out, right? And we're all under so much pressure. Only one team wins, right? So just by definition, there's 29, sort of teams that have a quote unquote failed season. We can't make this any harder on ourselves than we need to, right? And trust is so important. Like you've seen it, I'm sure, in your career, right? There are more talented teams that have less success because the intra-team dynamic isn't as strong. And to the extent that I can play a role in that, I want to make sure that I'm facilitating a really cohesive, together environment.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching so far. Cobi Club is presented by Intermex, proudly serving Latino communities by making it faster and easier to send money home. Jonathan sometimes will just pop in with info. Yeah. He has the license to chime in whenever he wants.
The iPad went down. So
All right, so we kind of jumped around a lot and all this stuff, but going back to to those early days, back in the 90s, what do you remember of MLS at that time, or were you even paying attention to MLS? Because let's be honest, you're an MLB. And this is the first years of MLS. There wasn't a whole lot, of MLS anywhere.
This is way pre my time in baseball, right? This is I was, I think 12 years old and first, watching was it Galaxy DC United? What was the first?
The final?
No, the first game ever on ESPN. I watched it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I remember.
I don't
San
know.
San Jose, DC.
That's what it was. That was
San Jose, DC. Okay.
I remember watching that.
Ronaldo's goal?
Yeah. And I remember that being like a big thing. And then again, in Brooklyn, I had a classmate whose dad was Argentine.
Oh, boy.
And Roberto Lorenzutti, dude was the biggest Boca fan you'd ever seen. And he was also a mechanic. And I just remember you go to his shop and it would just be like, just 3 dudes working on a car and 5 dudes yelling at like a 13-inch TV, like screaming in Spanish, right?
Right.
There's so many. There's always, you go to the bodega. There's people watching, Liga MX games on, and so you were always seeing soccer on TV somewhere.
Yeah.
It was never American soccer, right?
Right.
You probably didn't know necessarily what language it was or anything about the teams, but you had this kind of awareness because people are from so many different places in New York that it was a big thing. And then, MLS coming in, I remember I had the Sports Illustrated for Kids, so the Kobe Jones cards and the Todd Ramos cards and the whole thing. And it definitely felt like a real thing. And then I went to a summer camp up in New Hampshire that was run by a guy from DC who knew a bunch of like diplomats and sort of people who worked in DC from abroad, and they all sent their kids to this camp in New Hampshire that was run by a bunch of lax bro, like DMV lax bros from like UVA and what have you. But it was the most talented like football group I'd ever seen, because you had kids from Madrid and kids from Paris and kids from Lisbon and kids from Rio de Janeiro. And when you get these guys in the field together and you see how you're like, we don't play soccer like this at all. Like this is something totally different. And then when you start hearing them talk about their teams, right? And that to me is what really kind of piqued my interest, because I've always been a big, American sports guy. But when you're talking about, the Brazilians' favorite player is Ronaldo, and the French guy's favorite player is Zidane, but they both play for Real Madrid, which is the favorite team of the guys from Madrid. You're like, what is happening here? Like, I don't really understand how this all works.
Everything coming together.
Yeah. And then you go back home after camp, and you're like, and even in Brooklyn, I'm like, well, what is happening? Like, nobody's talking about this, right? Like, how do I find out more about this? And that was just a couple years before I think you had like the Premier League review show on Fox Sports or Fox Sports World at the time. But just that, I think, being around all these different guys and seeing how differently they played and how sort of obvious it was to them about like what football was and what the top level of the sport looked like, that kind of really piqued my interest.
You didn't mention when New York, New Jersey Metro Stars came out here playing the Galaxy for the first game, and we won. My goal against them. You remember that? Yeah, remember that? I
remember that too.
2-1, right?
Was it 2-1?
Yeah. But you just remember my goal. That was it. That was the first goal. That's it. That's what it was.
The Metro Stars were a big thing in New York, and you go out to the Meadowlands. It was like this whole event, and you'd take a bus out. There'd be 12,000 people in a 65,000 person stadium, but like really cool memories of that.
Okay. Forget all that. I'm gonna put you on the spot. How do you think some of the top teams from back in the day and those 90s teams would compare to teams now?
So I remember talking to Bruce about this not too long ago. And he was just like, the DC United team they had in whatever it was, 98. He's like, would have crushed so many people. And you're kind of like, come on, man. But if you look at it, because there were fewer teams in the league, and because even global football, I think, especially in Europe, they weren't as open and aggressive at signing guys from Central and South America.
Right.
Like the number of national team players per team at the time, when you actually go through and look at it, you're like, man. And I don't think people don't remember Jaime Moreno or Marco Echeverri or guys like Hurtado. Like there was so much talent in the league that was playing for national teams. Right. The world of football was so different then you couldn't see it, but and there were so many fewer teams. Right. We have the biggest league in the world by 10 teams, right? 8 teams. Like I do believe that the fewer teams, the more concentrated the talent, and I think the game is different now, right? So I think the way I think our players are maybe more physical and more talented, but I would caution anybody against just sort of saying.
Okay, thank you for saying this, because first off,
that's what you want to hear.
This is what I want to hear. That's right. Yeah, music to these ears. First off and foremost, before everyone goes crazy, oh my God, I can't believe what they're saying. I think one of the big things, don't say, oh, the game is so different. Guess what? The game is different all the time. And one of the big things, now, try to really concentrate on this.
You hit a nerve here now.
The game is so different, and it's different in a variety of different ways. Yes, the players, could be more physical and faster and all this stuff, but you could tackle from behind. When I was playing, I could be standing here with the ball, and someone could slide right through and say, "Oh, I touched the ball," and play on.
Right.
That's how it was. So it was a very different, type of game. But I do agree with you that if you look at the rosters now, maybe 12 through 18 wasn't that great, but the starting 11, a lot of teams, it was probably 7, 8 players, maybe the whole team, all national teams. Somewhere around the world. So I agree with you 100%. And thanks for getting that out there.
These kids don't know.
They don't know. They don't know. That would be an interesting type of exercise. To see someone to place. Where would these teams sit? I
remember we worked with Bob. He'd talk about he'd have Christos Stoichkov, who'd been World Player of the Year, playing with him in Chicago, right, on a team that's also got guys like Ante Razov and Chris Armas, Jesse Marsh.
Was Beasley on there at that time too?
I think that was before Beasley. But Boca Negra got out there at one point. It was.
It's crazy. That's a lot of talent.
A lot
of talent on those teams.
Yeah.
So speaking of the league, I mean, there's so much stuff coming up. But I was just asked this recently. Mm-hmm. If you were commissioner for a day. Sorry, Don. But if
I think I would be commissioner for a day. I think that's as long as they'd let me last.
Okay. What changes? What one change would you make on the field? What one change would you make off the field? You want me to give you what I said? Okay, to give you an idea. For me, on the field, I said I would change the playoffs. Okay. I would change the playoffs in that I had heard about this way of doing things a long time ago, and I would do it where when it's a one-off, but when you do it, and if you tie, you do the penalties right away.
Right.
And then who's the winner. Mm-hmm. And then you play the 2-15s right there. So then it kind of, a team can try to sit back, but one team isn't going to hold back because they have to get the goal.
Is worth a goal for the penalty, and then
the winner of the penalties is a half a point, right?
Okay. So you need one goal.
Yeah. So if it's a tie, that half a point team that's already won the penalties wins it all, and then the other team's got to go. And I'll tell you, maybe the first few minutes, but once you get to those last 10 or 15, it's going to be up and down.
Look, I'm glad it's you're an OG throwing it out there, because I feel like if it was me proposing that, it'd be like I see it. I'd like to think
they have had some more interesting things.
I like to think a single game elimination is also pretty strong. I mean, I've always said that I think what would be really cool would be a sort of like old school Champions League, like group stage playoffs, where you've got like 4 groups of 4. And then you play a little round robin. Everybody plays 3 games in that group, and then the top 2 teams from each group go on. I know the league has looked at that. There's challenges with it. My thing on the field, and this is like very niche maybe, I don't think like referees should ever have to look at offsides, right? Like the referee is like, you don't have to go to VAR for offsides. Like it should be the linesman's decision, right? Like the referee doesn't do it in the game, they shouldn't have to do it as a review, right? I think there are ways in which we can be better with VAR, and just say, hey, like there's a certain group of things that are within the referee's purview, and there are other things that we don't need the referee to look at because it's just not part of it. Did the ball go out? Okay, great. If it's a foul, that should be for the referee. Is it violent conduct? For sure. But like, the simple stuff, like let's keep the game moving as much as possible.
Yeah. Would you get rid of VAR?
No, like I think it's
if someone said you get rid of VAR, yes or no, you have to make a decision.
To those people, I'd say to those of you who are anti-VAR, I just remind you, like the only thing in that case, like worse than VAR, is not having it, right? Like
right.
You had the chance to get it right. I think that's the biggest thing. We might not always feel like you get it right. I think there's something really deflating about somebody scoring a goal and then having to look over and see, is the flag up, and then we got to wait. That's hard. There's no doubt about it. But I do think the alternative is just not being able to get it right if you got it wrong, and that I think is worse. And then off the field, I just say let us spend more money, and let us spend it. More importantly, let us spend it differently, right? I think we talked about a little bit that what makes a really good team is not your first 5 guys, right? It's how you fill out that group of 11 to 20, right? What does your bench look like? And that's not just, I think people think about it in terms of on the field in games, but also training every day, right? Having deeper teams means you have more competitive training. You give your coaches more ways to chop up the group and then keep that level really high. So, and you're asking me, I'll always say, give us more money.
More money. That's more money.
Not sure my bosses want to hear that, but that's what I would say.
So would you be okay with like a hard cap if they just say, I'm throwing a number out, $30 million, figure it out, and it's on you. If you want to crash your car, crash your car.
And I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this. What I always have thought would be like, and I'm biased because I came up in baseball. Baseball's got a system that says, hey, if you want to spend, you can sort of do that at your own pain threshold, right? You, at a certain point with the luxury tax, you have to give a portion of what you spend, or sometimes all of what a match for match what you spend to other clubs, right? But what that really means, the clubs who are really willing to go that extra mile, like they're so committed to doing it that they'll do it, right? And they'll push the whole league forward, right? And I think that's something that you're finding a way to allow teams that want to spend, but you're also providing a benefit for the other clubs that maybe don't. We have the playoffs, so I actually think we need to be less concerned about regular season competitive balance. If you had the playoffs in other football leagues, our football, the results would look a lot different. You wouldn't have Bayern be champion for 10 years in a row if you had the playoffs, right? They'd probably be champion 6, 7, 8 times, but you'd have these teams come in. You kind of see it in cup competitions, right? And so I think that's something that maybe we need to be less worried about, pearl clutchy about with the regular season, because you have this great leveler in the playoffs. But at the same time, like, there's no doubt what's happening in Miami is pushing the league forward, right? It creates an incredible atmosphere in every stadium they go to, not just their home games, right? Sun in across town is doing something similar, right? There is something to be said for investing in your team, and there is a boost for the whole league. So finding the right way to allow that to happen while also allowing owners who maybe don't want to do that to still benefit or feel like they can compete is really important.
Okay.
Sorry, just wanted to jump on that. Yeah. So if you can explain it to us like we're 5 years old.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Why is there like a conservativeness with money where if you do look and research these team owners, there is no problem with money? So like, why is it that the league says maybe we're not ready for this yet? Not that you don't have the money, but we don't want everyone to go out and do this yet.
Yeah. So, why is the league, still hawkish about spending? The league was founded on this principle of competitive balance. Right. It's pretty common to all American sports. Ironically, the only time this sort of class of American billionaire wants to embrace the socialism aspect, it's in sports leagues. Yeah. But competitive balance is a central pillar of the league, and I think there's also a component of it that is really being mindful of the history of the football leagues, the American or the global football leagues in America that came before, right? Whether it's the NASL or the leagues before then, a lot of them folded, right, because they weren't sustainable. They grew too quickly. You look at those Cosmos teams of the 70s, oh my God, you had Pele and Beckenbauer and Shep Messing, but that league wasn't sustainable. And so being growth-minded has been always very important to MLS. And I think those two things, competitive balance and responsible growth, naturally cause you to move slowly. Now, I think the question is, are we at a point now where we can feel pretty confident in our ability to grow without completely collapsing, right? I think football in this country is in a very different place than it was 32 years ago. It's in a very different place than it was when I got to the league office 10 years ago. There's an appetite for more quality, right? There's an appetite for better teams. There's an appetite, I think, too, for new ownership groups. I mean, when you look at what these expansion fees are now, that's not that's up there. That is people putting their money where their mouth is. Right?
Yeah.
That is people telling you what they think of this league and its potential. We don't have relegation, so you have a safer investment. The safeguards we have around spending, I think, allow for that interest and projected growth in the league. So it's just how can we push as much as possible?
Yeah, I think that's important for people to understand, because one of the big statements around soccer in the U.S. is talking about, okay, can we have pro rel,
Right.
like that. What you touched on, I try to explain to people, you have to understand this league was built differently. Yeah. This league is built from the top down. Like you said, someone coming in with an expansion fee of $700 million, they're not going to want to go down to the second division next year, like that. That's very difficult to try to get. You won't get those type of expansion fees if you could drop in a year or two, because you're putting so much money. The stadium that you have to, bring along as well, the practice facilities, all this. I think it becomes numbers for people on the outside. That's it. Just hearing it. Oh yeah, it's $100 million here. It's $200 million there. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, and it's again, I don't think necessarily relegation is why the Premier League is great, right? I don't think somebody who loves the Premier League watches a Premier League game. You're not watching Liverpool Arsenal and being like, oh, thank God we have relegation, right? Like they're operating at one end of the spectrum, right? And I think that's the spectrum that people are really tuning in for, right? No disrespect, to some of the teams at the bottom of the table, but
Wolves, no disrespect, Wolves, after you gave a tie to Arsenal.
But I don't think that some of these, Wolves Burnley is necessarily moving the needle in the same way, right? And look, I do think there's something to be said for the impact that Pro Rel has on the bottom of a table, right? Where you could finish 17th in England and you're popping champagne because you're staying up, right? And so it does ensure that there's still a lot of churn at the bottom of the roster, but I don't think it makes better teams, right? And I don't think if you look at our league, having Pro Rel is going to increase the quality of play as much, in my previous example, as having different spending rules would, right? I think there are aspects of Pro Rel that I really like, right? Like you wouldn't have tanking in the NBA like you do now if there was Pro Rel, right? But I think it's an easy proxy for people to solve a problem that we don't necessarily have, right? Or to go about solving a problem that I think can be attacked in a different way.
Yeah, it still matters. Did you have something, Jonathan?
Just wanting to add to that comment and kind of propose a hypothetical to you guys. So it's like I think about it all the time too with Pro Rel, and I think it's just like an international perspective that they're trying to bring into American culture. But American sports culture is very much already its own thing, and there are some ways where MLS does share that too. So I started thinking, if the NBA had a second division and the Lakers went into that second division, like what would actually really happen, like to the crypto arena, to the sales and all that stuff. So I think that sometimes we consider it too much, where it's like we know it's a really important part of European culture, but if that actually happened in American sports, like does the American fan even have it in them to be like, the hell, I'm going to a second division game? You know what I mean? So it's like, it's almost like something where in a really weird way, we can see it with like a little bit of a championship mentality of being like, we don't do that second division stuff. Where it's like it's a passionate thing from them, but it's a cultural thing too, where they started that way. It's all they know. It would bury so many sports fans here.
No doubt. And I think the other thing that we have to consider is that we actually have this global, football culture in the U.S. We just have it in college sports, right? You want like 60, 80,000 people in small towns all over the country to show up. You want tradition. You want songs. You want history. You want all this stuff. That's college sports. That's SEC football. That's Pac-12 soccer, right? Like that's these power conferences that we have so much of that. We have a lower division that's incredibly popular, and so I think to your point, like in the U.S., it's different, and I think Pro Rel does help keep things spicy at the bottom of the table, right? But I don't know that anybody's looking at 8 through 15 in England and being like, once you're sort of safe in the middle, it's not like the quality is great, and so there's always different ways to attack it. I think if 8 teams in the Premier League got into a playoffs, I think that would be maybe more exciting, right? So that's
that would be interesting.
Different, I think that could be more exciting than the prospect of 18, 19, 20 going down. So
right. Let me ask you this. We talked about the league a little bit, and how it has willingness to change and move and be dynamic. Obviously there's a change that's going to be happening in 2 years. 2 years now.
18 months to 2 years.
18 months to 2 years. How do you think that's going to help the league? I know there's the perspective of we're going to be on the same timeline, so it will be the acquisition of players may be easier for clubs and organizations. But also there's people are saying the negative, because I think you always have to adjust and everybody's a part of it when you're looking at, how do you play winter in the North? Yeah. How are they going to have to deal with, and maybe this is it, to be blunt, they're just going to spend more money. You're going to have to take care of the fields and take care of the various situations, your practice facilities and all of that.
Yeah, so the calendar flip, I think, is really exciting. Of course, there's challenges with it. Yeah. What I think some people aren't acknowledging is, and maybe you don't even realize it because it's kind of been your normal for a long time, but playing soccer in the summer is not fun.
I understand that. I understand that.
I remember 2024, right, one of Marco's first games. Like, he started in St. Louis, and I think we played at it was like a 1 o'clock kick in Missouri. There was a heat dome over the game. You can't move. Like, those conditions are really tough. And that's something that has a real impact on the game, right? And it is colder in the winter, no doubt, but in some of these places, like you've got a culture of going outside to watch games anyway. Like when Minnesota United first got to the league, they played in the Golden Gopher Stadium, football stadium. Like, those games are outside, right? Like, there are trade-offs, but I also think it's really important that we acknowledge that 2 years ago we played Red Bull in the final on a Saturday in December, and we got rolled by I think it was the SEC championship game, right?
Right.
This puts us in a much better window to be seen, right? We, imagine if MLS Cup was like warm weather, right? So like it's kind of always warm weather in LA, but I think there's also a big pickup to, the way the season will look with this new schedule flip. That's really exciting.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I think you get a bigger range of weather. And for me, and maybe I'm just being the old man Jones over here with just the being nostalgic, I just remember seeing games all the time where it's raining and it's the slick field and the field gets a little muddy, and all that. And I think that
watching from Southern California on your television and your flip flops in November.
Yeah, those guys, they got it tough out there. Yeah. That was the nature of it. I think that's why they always said, "Oh, you SoCal guys, you're soft," But hey, we find our ways. We handle it. Do you? We do. We got a few championships, in LA. That's how it goes. But I do have a nostalgic view of it, and I think in the long run, I think it will be just much better to see the cold weather, the rain, and then kind of moving into, to be honest, it reminds me of like the Euro style, if you're in England or, any of those countries as it slowly gets warmer. And I'm not sure if you know about this or if you could even speak to it. What does this mean for when this change comes about? What does it mean for the Leagues Cup or I guess the break in the season? Will the Leagues Cup be in there? Is there enough time? I mean, it's going to throw everything out of whack, it seems like. Are you going to squeeze Leagues Cup into a week now or what?
So, it's words that I won't always say, but I give a lot of credit to the MLS League office because they've really done a good job at trying to consider all the different options and variables and questions that get raised by this. So yeah, Leagues Cup is one of them. Another one is the Champions League. Right? If you think about it now, we played on Thursday in Panama, but the reason the Champions League structure is the way it is because of the MLS schedule. If you remember in the old, when I first got to the league in 2014, you would qualify for Champions League in 1 year, and then the following year you would play in the group stage in the second half of the year, and then it would conclude in the following season with the knockout stage. So you would qualify with one team, play the first half with another team, and then finish the championship, finish the competition with your 2 years later, right? So it's that's really difficult. It opens up some opportunity, I think, for Champions League. And Leagues Cup is another thing where could you say, hey, in that break we're now going to play these games, Leagues Cup, in not just the U.S. but also in Mexico, right? So maybe they can be warm weather markets, and then you don't have to be so pressed to put league games in colder weather markets in February, right? The league has done a really good job of looking at all this different the different options. We talked about Coachella, right? Can we really blow out what we do now as CBI and make it something almost like the Cactus League in baseball, where all the teams are coming out and we can have everybody in one site, and you can get these games as the league gets its rhythm back and gets together to get ready to get started again. Because I do think, our break is going to be unique in American sports, and we're going to have to find ways not just to stay relevant, but to keep, keep people aware of what's happening, right, up to date with just what's going on. And so finding ways to compete. Leagues Cup could be that. Some games during that break that lead into the season or that. I think everything's kind of on the table.
And you mentioned it, jumping a little bit with the Champions Cup. Now, Galaxy went down to Panama, got the result, or I should say got a tie. I'm trying to stay serious here and you're laughing, dude.
No.
Okay.
We'll edit that in post.
So the Galaxy went down and got the draw, the 1-1 draw in Panama. How do you see, and this is more specific, obviously, to your position as the GM of the Galaxy, how do you see them moving forward? Personally, for me, yes, I would have liked to see the Galaxy win. I know what it's like traveling to some of these countries sometimes, and I think they're still in a good position because you play at home, and it's one of those situations. If you take care of the job at home, you're good to go.
Yeah, it's a tall order. It's the first competitive match of the season. You're playing in Thursday in Panama, and you got to play on Sunday in LA. You've got a new group of guys who are still sort of coming together as a team, and so. It's a tough place to play. It's CONCACAF. You're really far away from home. You're in the jungle. The stadium was awesome. It's a really small university thing, but it's the biggest game. And people were talking about in the pregame press conference. It's the club's biggest game in their history, right? And it was the biggest match of almost like everybody there, except for MLS old head Armando Cooper, who was out there. But we knew that we were going to get a stiff test and a team that was really committed and dug in. And you want to just break through that first game jitters, right? Get the legs moving, get the lungs opened up, get a feel for the ball and playing. But then knowing that we come back, we play on Sunday, then we play on Wednesday, then we play on Saturday. So we had to make sure that we're not just putting too much in the Thursday result on the road, knowing that we've got the kill shot game back here, and then two really important league games for us to get this campaign started off on the right foot.
Okay. I think that's.
You also say every time we don't win, you say the LA Galaxy should win. So it's not just a CCC thing. That's you come in on Monday morning.
Why didn't we win that game? I'm sorry. I'm a Galaxy guy. If it makes you feel better. When I was playing, I was just like, how the hell didn't we win that game?
I love it, man.
Maybe it's my personality. It's just like I'm competitive. I want to win every single time. That's just the way. Okay, that speaks to something. I think we discussed this before. What I'll phrase this differently. What's more difficult for a club? Is it winning the championship or staying at a high level year after year? What do you see from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, winning is incredibly hard, right? But I think winning sustainably is even harder, right? If you just think about it, you can have a flash in the pan, you can have a good year, you can have some fortunate things happen for you, but to be sustainably great, right? That's really hard, because that means, especially in a league like MLS, that means you're withstanding the influx and outflux of players, right? You're going to lose guys, you're going to turn over your roster. The only way to have that sustainable success is through culture and a consistency of environment, and some adaptability too, right? So you got to be, willing to change. You have to be willing to bring in new players. You have to be willing to say goodbye to some players who really contribute, and then you at all times need to have that, like you said, like that obsession with winning and competing and getting better. I think those things are what allow for sustainable success, and you can't be sustainably successful by accident. I think you can have a good year here or there, especially in a league like MLS, but to have that next level is a testament to an organization's ability to commit to the dirty work.
And how do you, with that? And then I completely, I agree. I agree with that. It's hard to be on top constantly, and like you said, the final in MLS, it's a one-off game at times. So you could, you mentioned it, you could be the better team and lose. You know, that's just the nature of it. When you look at this team now, what you've put together, actually, are we done putting it together? Are we done?
I think what we said this today with our group. Roster compliance was yesterday. It's like, hey, what we've got here is this is our group. For Champions League, right? This is our group until we get to the World Cup. Football is football, so you never know what's going to happen in the next 6 months. And there's a lot of opportunity. A lot of guys are going to have a lot of, a lot of our guys I think have attracted interest from other clubs. There's a lot of eyes in the Galaxy always. We're in a huge competition like Champions League, but what we have here now today is what we've got. So I was like, look around, guys. Like, we're going to war with this group. I think we can do it. I think we've got the horses. I think we've got guys. I said this to the group. We've got guys who are. This might be your first big season. You've got some guys. This might be your last big season, right? And you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. So let's just embrace this and compete and just be thankful for the opportunity we have. And I think it's really exciting. We got guys from. Other MLS teams, right? And so I think it's really when we brought in 4, right? We Eric Tommy, Jakob Glesnes, Justin Hack, Joao Klaus. When you see what these guys who have been in MLS, when you see what the Galaxy means to them, right? What the opportunity to come to the Galaxy and show yourself as a member of the Galaxy means, it's been really good for the whole group, right? I think it's had a really positive impact on the guys who have been here to kind of like get them a little reinvigorated, right? But yeah, it's a talented group, and I think everybody here is either motivated to show themselves or to show very different than maybe they showed last year. So.
Well, you talked about this group, the new guys, the guys that are here before, and what it means. What's great about this unit? What do you see as great about this unit over these next? Well, not even over the next team, but what do you see about them that's like, yeah, this is a team that can compete?
I mean, for me. What we saw this preseason was really different. This is a group that's like, they're getting on with it, right? Like they're putting in the work, and it's credit to Jim and Tom and Adzi with our performance staff. Breakfast used to be till 10, now it's till 9:30. And guys are, at 9:30, you're in the gym, you're doing work. Like we look better physically, right? Like we're putting in a lot more work. And the new guys are bringing that, they're helping to set that standard, right? They're coming in like Hack and Glesnes. Crushed our preseason fitness, right?
I love that.
You got a you can get a center back who was like second, and Hack was like 4th or 5th, and you're like,
dang, are they still doing that beep test with that stuff?
No, this is crazy running. Right? But it's a testament. Like these guys showed up willing to work, right? And then I think everybody else saw that. I was like, oh, okay, like this is different, right? So, I think the mentality is different. I think you've got guys here who are coming in and are like, hey, maybe some of you guys who have been here for a little bit don't realize how good you've got it. But everybody just putting in the work, and I think everybody wants to show that 2026 is its own year, and it's starting now.
It's new. Oh no, I'm going to comment on that, and I think it's so true. Where you said like players coming from the outside come in, and then the players that are here already can see what the Galaxy means. And I think that's extremely important, because I just had a discussion with some people, and they're asking about the league and the Galaxy and all of this, and they're not this, that, or the other, and talking about other teams. You don't understand. The Galaxy is the Galaxy. When you go overseas and you go anywhere else, they may say, okay, yeah, Messi, or they may say, Son on that other team, but when it comes down to it, the Galaxy is the representative of this whole league. To this day still internationally, and it's the standard bearer. Six championships, everyone else is still chasing. So I hope that is something that translates, to all those guys, to really, be a moment of just like, oh wow, this is, because it's almost like your kids always look at you like, we don't care. It's just dad. It's just mom. Understand. It's that could, you understand what I'm getting at with that?
Totally.
Yeah.
And again, that's where and you normally see it from the international guys, right? Because you're off in whatever part of the world you might be, and you're talking about the Galaxy, and they know Zlatan, and they know Beckham, and they know Chicharito, and on, and they know Ricky Puig, right? But when you see it for guys who are in the league too, I think that's also, I think for me, it's been something that's different, because it's not just the global recognition, which is great that it's there. Don't get me wrong, but it's the guys who have been in MLS and actually are really familiar with their league and know the difference, right? I think that's the thing that is really exciting, and the job that Zach Marchetti and Emily Mejia do in our player care department of helping our guys get settled in. We will take the best care we can of you and your family, help you guys adapt to market, make sure that you have whatever it is you need, because we are also going to ask the most of you on the field, right?
Right. Yeah.
To try and be elite at all levels is really important for us.
Well, let me ask you about that, elite at all levels, and you have the VCFC team and all of that. Mm-hmm. How do you see the transition, from VCFC to coming into the first team? Before, on the second team, didn't see a whole lot, but you're starting to see now seems to be maybe a better connection, a better understanding of players coming through.
Yeah, and I think, realigning an academy is like, it's not like turning a jet ski, right? It's like a battleship, because it takes a long time. And even if you start with a group of 13-year-olds, it's going to take 5 years before they fully develop. So a cycle or generation takes time. And I think, there was a lot of change that was happening even before I got here. But what we've tried to do is align the whole process and make sure that now, Matt Taylor, our VCFC coach, is coming upstairs a couple times a week and sitting with the front office, and that he and Greg are in regular communication. He's part of the preseason coaching staff before the VCFC gets started. So we have this alignment. We have guys from the second team in first team training, and we have guys in the academy and second team training. So there's just much more fluency throughout the club about what's going on. There's much more exposure to different guys. There's much more conversation back and forth, I think, between the first team staff and the second team staff. And then, we also, you kind of have to take that first step, right? So you look at last year, and we got Harbor Miller some really important minutes, and Ruben Ramos, I joke with them both in Panama. I'm like, you guys are Champions League veterans now, right? You're 18 and 19 years old, but this isn't your first Champions League, right? You've already done this. Mauricio Cuevas, another one, right? We have some really good kids in the academy who are knocking on the door, and I think San Diego did a really good job of showing the whole league that if you don't believe in the young players as a club and you don't give them a chance, there is zero chance that they will develop.
Right.
And so it is uncomfortable, and your worst minutes should be your first minutes, and so you got to fight through that. But being comfortable with the uncertainty of having younger players and pushing through that leads to a really bountiful crop of developed players going forward.
Boom, ding, bountiful crop. Because let's be honest, right? I mean, this league, part of it is you can sustain a club. I shouldn't say sustain a club, but it would be helpful if you can develop players and then move them on, overseas, right? If you can sell a player, to Barcelona's second team, all of a sudden, you're getting some payback, right? In the end.
And even now within the league, right? The rules have changed. So now you can sell players to other teams in the league. At the Yankees, we had a pretty big farm system. We always said that, we don't rebuild, we reload, right? And so we had prospects that you had to keep, and those guys were part of your future planning. But we also had enough really high quality players that other teams wanted them. And so if you're not, what my goal would be that every player in our academy is a first team player. The odds are you can't all be first team Galaxy players, but there's no reason you guys can't all be first team players, whether it's in Europe, Mexico, MLS, what have you. I mean, that's what we want to do. And so I think it's really important to develop guys. And I know some people have an aversion to the idea of selling, but what I would say is you can't sell what's not working, right? Nobody's going to go for 20. You're not going to sell a donkey for $20 million. Right? If you're having these types of offers from teams, it's because something's going really right. And we have to be a little honest about where we are in the global football pyramid and say that's okay, right? And we should be really proud if some of the best teams in the world want our players, because it means that we're all doing a good job with player development.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump back a little bit, and towards the end of this, it is something that you said. And you said like this is the group until summer. There's a rumor going around of a player in Brazil right now that just cut his contract, finished his contract, a little Coutinho situation. I mean, I've just seen it online saying that the Galaxy was in talks with them and that. Any truth to the rumor?
I would say there is some. There's
a lot of ums and ahs going on.
We're going into like I just got to think about what Jamie's going to say to me afterwards.
Okay.
There's some fire behind the smoke, but it doesn't change what I said about the group we got now is the group.
Okay.
Right? We looked at a lot of players this offseason. There were a lot of really intriguing ones, a lot of high-end ones, but the reality is we really wanted to place a priority on getting our group together and having the group here as soon as possible. And so we couldn't wait for anybody's timelines who weren't aligned to that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I want to try to get something fun for you here really quick at the end. About all these deals that you've done at the league, at LAFC, at Galaxy.
Yeah.
What's a crazy one where you're just like, oh, this is, or maybe something that you had to fly somewhere or do something, and then it's just like, really, and then it falls apart or something along the line, or it worked out. Just one of the crazy ones, Are you picking out Skittles for anybody? Red Skittles.
No, geez. The craziest one, honestly, I would say was. This offseason,
really,
with Joao Klaus, because we were talking to St. Louis, we were talking to Joao, really, and his wife, Bruna's, she's pregnant now, and they were facing like a really big sort of decision, and Joao was on board, right, and the agent was on board, and St. Louis was on board, and we're like, this is great, and then we got a call, and I was like, sounds like maybe Joao's wife doesn't really want to move to LA, and I was like, that's the first time I've ever heard of anybody's wife being the reason a move didn't happen, right? Especially and from Missouri to LA, I was like, wow. I've seen player skill deals, agent skill deals, team skill deals, but that was the first time I'd ever heard of that. I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing that could happen. And then obviously things worked out in the end. I think they had some time to.
I think we all know the wives can kill a lot of deals.
No. I just I never thought somebody's like, I'm gonna take Missouri over.
That's it. You should fly out to the beach first.
I love St. Louis. I'll be clear. Like, the great state of Missouri had a lot of great nights there. So great people.
That's awesome.
That's probably the craziest recent one. And every negotiation is different, right? Some you travel for, some you don't. Some you're up at all hours of the night. Your wife comes down like, who are you talking to? Like, oh, it's this guy.
It's not what you think. What you think. It's that commercial. What is that commercial?
State Farm.
State Farm commercial.
Well, is there one, even if it was years ago, where it's like, if the world only knew how close this was, or how much contact we actually made?
Yeah, I think there are. When I was at LAFC, right, we were having a lot of conversation with Chicharito, right? Had a conversation with Zlatan, and it's not uncommon, I think, with MLS, like agents pitch their players around certain clubs, right? So or certain markets, and so I think, my first one was like, I remember I was 2014 probably, and Jorge Messi came to the league office. And really? Jorge Messi was asking all these questions about MLS and how does it work and all that. And I was like, man, kind of felt like maybe something might happen because he was really interested. But then, you get a year out, 2 years out, you're like, I guess Messi's never coming. Right?
Yeah, right.
But I'm trying to think. I think that those would be the ones where it's like, the Chicharito one was big because we were, LAFC. He was a huge name, Mexican name in the market. It could have been a bit of a sliding doors moment, But I remember John and Tom Penn going over to Germany to meet with him. When he was over there.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah. It worked out for some better than others. I think.
No, of course. Anything else? Yeah.
Just one thing. So I saw a podcast that you did years ago, and it was the Chiellini story.
Okay.
So I just found it interesting, and I'm wondering how it shaped you, like from then to now. So I know that story. It gets kind of funny where it's like you were talking to his brother, and his brother was like, "My brother is never. He's not going to come here, but maybe I can help you with other players." Right. Long story short, he does in fact come here. I think becomes an MLS Cup champion. Like all these things change. Did that give you kind of like a perspective where it's like, hey, like you kind of have to call BS where like if someone tells you it's not going to happen, you now know for a fact that it's very, very possible. Like I think it has to be realistic within reason, but because I would argue maybe along with David Beckham or after David Beckham, I think you're the only other like figure that someone would be like, I'll take that phone call because of your market, because of what you've done before. So at some point, like when you have a conversation and there's like an initial like, oh no, thank you, but no, there has to be a party that's like, it's never really no.
I think, when it comes to trying to sign these guys who are coming, top professional careers, could be a guy like Marco or Giorgio, Gareth Bale. What's really important is to understand what's important to the player, because a lot of times agents or family members might not understand what the player wants. So they say, okay, you can't take this salary, right? You can't take a non-DP salary, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. But, and Giorgio was a really cerebral guy. Marco is a really cerebral guy. They understood what they were signing up for. They understood what the challenge was. And when you have a feeling from a player that it's about that, right, that they really understand what the football opportunity is, what the market opportunity is, I think a lot of the players in that kind of stratosphere who have come here have been looking for a challenge, right? They're not coming to retire or vacation. They're saying, hey, I see what is there and I want to take it to another level. And so it doesn't ever surprise me that might be not what the agent wants or what a relative really understands, because it's so different from what's going on in global football. But, you always have to kind of get a sense of like, hey, if the player feels it, right? The agent works for him. The family is reflecting his desires. If he's really interested and he really wants to compete and win, and that's the thing about when I talk to Marco or anybody, it's like, hey, you're coming here to win, right? LA is great when you win, but if you're just coming for the vacation, it's not that. And agents will usually say, no, it's not enough, right? Like for all these guys, because they've been making, they've been on really big money, and the agent's getting a cut of that, and when they come here, it's, that sort of stops happening, and so. You can't be deterred. You got to believe in yourself. We try and do our homework too, and that, we try and make sure that we're only having guys on our list that are realistic targets, right? That we have some level of reason to believe that they're open to it, and that they're not just going to come here and live la vida loca in LA, because that's a real thing too. Because everybody, the amount of inbound we get is serious, right? And that's a good problem to have compared to some other markets. But it also means that. And nobody ever says, hey, you know what? I'm just kind of looking to shut it down for a couple of years and live my life in LA and have fun. So, nobody's going to say that to us, so we have to make sure we tease it out ahead of time.
Actually, glad we got a little bit more serious, because I do want to go into a serious topic before we finish up. So, this is important to me.
Yeah.
Hope it's important to you, too. I mean, yeah, no one else here. Black History Month. Here we go. Why do we have the shortest month? 28 days. What's going on? Yeah. No. That's that joke, right? But it seems like I'm going to touch on this because it's serious right now, and it's the racism that is going on. Obviously, if you don't know what happened with Vinicius Jr., and it's just incredible to me. Look it up if you haven't seen it. But he's claiming that he was once again on the receiving end of racist remarks, and you had his teammates backing him up, saying that it's true. It seems like this just continuously is happening around the world. We've had it within MLS at times. I just wonder, like, your take as a black man. How do you view this? How do you deal with it within MLS and the organization? Because for me, I'll tell you this: a personal aspect, I was very proud to see you in a position like this. Because you no matter what anyone says, you always want to see someone that looks like you. Why? Because it says, hey, I could possibly be there someday. So I found out that I was looked up to by more people than I knew about. And I guarantee you're going to see that, especially later on down the road. People are going to go, you know what? I looked up to you because of the position you're in, So if you could speak to it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, look, when it comes, just talk like the Vinny incident, right? I remember when I first started working in MLS, 12 years ago now, but there were incidents, I think, in Italy, and they were talking about walking off the field. And the discourse around that was, these players shouldn't walk off the field. They should be able to withstand it. You're a professional player. And I remember almost kind of despairing at how sort of tone deaf it felt, or just, it was like, you have to be better than this, right? And you should be able to rise above. And I think that was really tough. And now you see what happens where this thing goes down, and the teammates are like, we're out. The manager's like, we're out. And the conversation in sort of the public square is really about, how do we end this, right? Nobody's saying, like, I haven't seen it being like, Vinny needs to buck up, right? Maybe like one guy in like Mexican TV, right? But like the amount of support and the outpouring of love, I think, is what I cling to, right? And I think that for some of this stuff, it's like it's kind of like people who are refusing to acknowledge the reality of the world, right? Like this is not changing. This is what global football looks like. But I'm really, encouraged by the discourse around it, the way that's changed in the last 12, 15 years. It's no longer, players shouldn't do this. It's like, yes, of course, like, let's support the team. I love that UEFA is looking into what happened. We have players on our team, Joe Painsil, right? Been a couple of incidents over the last 2 years. Shola Winley at the league office and people there at 425th have been really aggressive about providing support for Joe. Right? And Joe's been, I think, pretty, he's played in Turkey, he's played in Hungary. Like he understands. Unfortunately, he's kind of used to it. But, I think there's a level of support and a level of care and involvement that this league has. And that's not just for players, but I think for staff, that I think is really great. And as it comes to, my background, it's like, look, this is, and like, it means a lot to hear you say that, but I said before, like, in sports, you find out, like, we don't have time to do anything other than win, right?
Yeah.
And so therefore, like, I really just, I don't care, because I don't have this job for long enough to, like, worry about what you look like. I care what you look like when you play the game, right? How you play. And like, I grew up in New York, which is a melting pot. You grew up out here, like, you play in basketball, you're playing our football, the global games. Like, I just want good players, like, and if you're dark skinned, light skinned, black, white, Southeast Asian, Western Asian, I just don't care, right? Like, you bring something, your experience brings something to the group, right? We put together a really, I think, diverse front office, right? People from different countries, different backgrounds, like. That's not because I say you have to be from different places, but just, we have different skill sets, and the more backgrounds you have, the more perspectives you have in the room, the better off you are. If everybody's agreeing with me, something's super wrong, right? And you don't necessarily have to have a different skin color or ethnicity to do that, but there's no doubt that, like, we're all shaped by our backgrounds.
Yeah, your culture, and I agree with that. I one of the reasons I do like diversity. It's not necessarily just because you're a different color or whatever. It's because it brings diversity of thought. Right. And 100%. Diversity of thought gives you so many different ways to look at a problem,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like there's just not one path, you know. There's just not one way to look at a problem. So I think it's fantastic. Last thing I'm going to ask you today: what does Will Kuntz, when it's all said and done, want people to say that he did differently, you know, within the game?
You know, I think I should be ready for that one. You know, I want to be said that I wasn't afraid to take risks and do it a little bit differently, right? I think the game is always evolving, always changing. You're not always going to get it right, but I want to make sure that we're, whatever organization I'm a part of, that we're trying to think outside the box, that we're trying to bring as many people and perspectives under the tent as possible. And that, that dude won a lot more than most people. I think that's a really important part of it too. But doing it in a way that's different. Because if you're trying to copy what people have done before, that I never get a job if I do that, right? You never get new types of players or new types of executives or what have you if you're just copying and pasting, right? Like, just try and make new mistakes, and then keep on doing that. And I think it'll be all right.
I like that.
Yeah.
Trying to make new mistakes.
That's right.
That's good. I like that. I'm gonna steal that one. Hey, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Colton. Appreciate it.